Hello guys, welcome to this video, and we will be introducing graphics design. And remember, this is a whole series, right, where I'll be taking you on a journey into graphic design, and I'll teach you everything you need to know about graphic design. And in this particular series, we'll be looking at graphic design and exploring Photoshop, right? So basically graphic design with Photoshop. But for this introductory video, I'm just going to tell you or talk to you about what graphic design basically is, right? So when you see something like this, what do you think of when somebody mentions the term graphic design? What pops up in your head? What are the ideas or what are the images you think of? Do you think of flyer designs, things like this? Or do you think of logo designs? Do you think of um, magazines and books, right? Yeah, so all these have to do with graphic design, and let's just get into it. So the question now is, what's graphic design, right? And graphic design is the art of visual communication through typography, color, layout, and the use of images and photos, right? So let's get this straight. Graphic design is about communication, right? And when you want to communicate, the first thing is you want to get attention, right? And then convey your message. So that's just basically graphic design. You want to get the attention of an audience. Remember, we are communicating to an audience, right? So we want to get the attention of an audience, then convey a particular message to them, and that's graphic design. And a good design must be interpreted the same way by everyone viewing that design. I think that makes sense. When you're communicating to people, a group of people, you always want them to get the same idea, not one person getting a point and another person being confused, right? So that's the goal and that's the aim for graphic design, right? I hope that makes sense. Now, we mentioned typography, right? So typography is just basically the use of typefaces, and we'll explore this as we move on. So when we are looking at typography, we'll talk about the anatomy of typography, typeface classification, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's quite a lot to learn from here, right? And we can explore designs which use typography like this, right? And how to get all of these crazy things done, right? So basically all of this has to do with typography. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we also mentioned this color, right? So in this, and as a graphic designer, you need to know how to use color, right? How to play with hues, understanding the emotional and the psychological cues to colors, right? Understanding color psychology, understanding how to harmonize colors, and so on and so forth, right? And if you look at designs, right, you see how colors are being used. Like, let's say, for example, this one, you would notice the use of colors, how colors are effectively being used, right? And technically, yeah, you study the colors, they go with each other, and you learn how to be predictable about this stuff, right? How to use colors predictably. And you know this color is going to match with this color because theory helps me get that right. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing we'll be looking at in this course. That's this. One very important thing, we'll look at layouts and composition. And this is basically how design elements are arranged on a design. That's it, right? Like if you look at this design, we have this lady, we have some text going flying around, we have this picture of this mountain, and so on, right? So typography, rather layout and composition helps us properly arrange our design elements on our design, right? So we'll explore this in great depth, right? So that's just basically layout and composition. So we are moving on to the next one. Now, this one is very important. Where does design come in? All right. So again, graphic design is about communication. You're trying to convey a particular message to a particular audience, right? And here we have a business, right? And this business has its mission, its core values. It has a product it's trying to market to a particular audience, right? So this business is trying to market a particular product to a particular audience, right? Now they want to convey this information in a very visual and creative way, a way that everybody or all of its target audience will be interested in the product, right? So now creativity is being employed here, where we have concepts like sketching, composition, and so on, right? To form, so the blend of the business and the creativity gives birth to graphic design, which is used for marketing, right? So in graphic design, you always have the business side and the creativity side. And what's the goal again? Yes, the goal is to convey a particular message to a particular audience, right? Let's move on to the next one. So Let's look at the types of design projects. So the first one, we have branding and event design. So branding basically has to do with things like logos, while event design has to do with things like posters, flyers, business cards, t-shirts, and so on. So let's just look at that. So the first one, talk about logo design, right? Something like this. As a graphic designer, when logo design is mentioned, this is what we're talking about. Branding, yeah, trying to give a particular business an identity, right? When you look at the logo, it's all about the identity of a particular business or a company or an organization, right? The next one we talk about event design, basically doing flyers and posters and banners, right? And moving on to the next type of design project, we have editorial design, basically the design for magazines, like designing magazines, books, and so on. So let's look at that, something like this, right? So this is what's called editorial design. And moving on to the next one, we have package design. Basically, you packaging products, right? Packaging the boxes of products, cans, food packaging, beauty products, and so on. So we have something like this. So this is what is being referred to as package design, right? So this is a particular type of design project where you have to do designs for packaging of products. I'm sure that makes sense. Moving on to the next one, we have UI and UX design, where basically you have to do designs for user interfaces, right? And we have stuff like this, right? Basically you're doing designs for screens, yeah, like web applications, mobile applications, and so on. And we'll talk about all of this in depth. Then the last one, we'll talk about illustration and digital art, right? So illustration and digital art projects look like this. Wow, we have stuff like this. I'm sure all of that makes sense. All right, so let's move on to the next. Now, we earlier mentioned that graphic design is all about communication, right? You're blending a business creativity to communicate to our target audience. So you would obviously need information from a business, right? So something like this. So this information provided by a business, right? And we want to now communicate this information to an audience in a visual way, right? So this particular client provided this information, and here is a design, a flyer design, which is being done for them, right? Makes sense. I believe this is better than this. This communicates better than this, right? More effectively than this one. Let me know what you think on the comment section. All right, moving on to the next one. Okay, so we have the next one. This one is a logo design, and this one is for a football club, Victoria United FC, and we have their slogan and the mission and the value of this particular club. I just left that out. And from all of that information, you can now have an idea and do a logo which represents that particular identity or that particular business or that particular brand. You get, right? And yeah, and that's it. So moving on to the next one, and the same idea, right? This a birthday design for a graphic designer, right? Yeah, I'm sure you get the idea. And I think that's just basically it. The next one, and I think you get the idea. So we have the information provided by the client, and you get to do this design, right? Now, designers, a designer's roadmap, right? What things do you need to learn? What things do you need to do as a graphic designer? Okay, so the first thing, learning graphic design theory is very important. We have to you learn design elements such as colors, shapes, forms, space, and you learn how to use them. The next one, you learn you need to learn design principles, right? Like contrast, hierarchy, mass, alignment, scale, balance, harmony, repetition, and so on. I mean, color theories, rather, design theory is very important, very, very important as a graphic designer. It helps you do predictable designs, things like color harmony. It helps you know which colors would work well, which colors, proven from theory, right? The next one, we learn how to use industry software tools, right? Like Photoshop, which is just basically a photo editing software. We also learn how to use vector-based software like Illustrator, and which this one is used a lot in logo designs, right? Photoshop is used a lot in flyer designs. Illustrator or this vector-based software is used a lot in things like logo design and so on. Then we have layout software, basically editorial designs. This is used for editorial designs like books, magazines, and so on, right? And the last one following the designer's roadmap, you need to create projects, you need to do logos, you need to do posters, and so on. Now, remember, for this course, for this particular series, we focus on graphic design using Photoshop, right? And we'll talk about theory, we'll talk about the design elements, design principles, and we're going to do a lot of design projects together, right? And I think that's it for now. So in the next video, I'll show you how to install Photoshop, and we're just going to get started immediately, right?